Welcome to Built to Finish. I'm your host, Steven Pivnik. Join me each week as we explore the journeys of audacious goal setters. This includes experienced founders, CEOs, and entrepreneurs sharing pivotal moments that propel their success. We'll also be talking with endurance athletes who push the limits of physical and mental ability. This show is brought to you by Acresis, offering tailored, high-impact advisory services to help founders get to their finish line with a strategic acquisition or majority investor recapitalization. Let's get started. Welcome back to another episode of Built to Finish. Today's guest is a powerhouse at the intersection of AI, data science, and enterprise growth. Before launching her own tech company, Cindy held executive roles at global giants like Accenture, Xerox, and Citicorp. She's a recognized thought leader in software as a service, AI, and disruptive innovation. And she's written 60 books on everything from big data to collaboration. Dr. Cindy Gordon, welcome to the show.
Thanks. It's great to be here, Steven.
My pleasure. Great to have you. So what gave you the courage to leave the corporate world and branch out into starting a company of your own?
Well, I grew up in an entrepreneurial family, I think, first and foremost. So the fear of the unknown and taking a plunge is not a foreign experience because when you grow up with entrepreneurial parents, you see the ebbs and the flows, right? I think what was the catalyst? I have to think back. I think it's when after being at Accenture, at that time, it was the dot-com was going on in the internet, and I was finishing up my doctorate. And I could just see the speed that things were moving in the entrepreneurial landscape. And so I said, okay, in order to get into that ball game, I better understand a little bit more about corporate finance. So I knocked on the doors of a company here called XDL Intervest. And, at that time was one of the premier venture capital firms. And so I joined as a partner. I knew nothing. That's, I knew nothing about corporate finance. I'd obviously been exposed to balance sheets, income statements, general business terms, but not in terms of the legal language of, cap tables and equity and also, the I would call it the clawback clauses that one might see in a contract. And so anyways, it was through that journey where, investing in companies, sitting on the boards and really appreciating, what the CEOs have to face and, get out of bed in the morning and really just continue to be, pumped, right? Because you have because it's easy to challenge people when they're in the early stages on different alternatives, right? And so it's through that, and I just said, you know what? Now maybe the time with that knowledge to build something. So I literally just sat down. I met one of them when I was a VC. There was a fellow, actually Dr. Yannick Lallemont, who did his PhD in AI. And we had an idea of the use case, and he said, yeah, I think we could actually predict sales forecasts using AI methods. And so we were really one of the early pioneers of, I'd say, thinking in this area, building something. And maybe, so I think it was through that, right? And I think then all of a sudden things start to roll. All of a sudden you hatch a proof of concepts, you get a customer, you start to get a few more customers, you start to validate, you actually start to see some revenue. And I think those were the building blocks was, I don't think I woke up immediately one morning and said, aha, I'm going to build a software company and this is what we're going to do. I think it was very evolutionary. But in fact, there were threads probably that were germinating that even I didn't notice, right?
Now, you were definitely a pioneer in the AI space. 13 years ago was when about when things started, heating up with AI. How complicated was it back then versus how it is now for startups to utilize AI within their solution sets?
Well, I think it's a very different environment. When OpenAI came on the scene, it was the Gen AI. So our earlier methods were predominantly predictive analytics, which we're really well proven. I mean, those aren't methods that were even 10 years ago. I mean, if you go back to financial services industry, they were using predictive modeling and random forests and different decision tree techniques for quite some time and Bayesian stats. So when Gen AI came on board, I think now it's about 3 years ago, I think, with OpenAI. Maybe it's 4. It's been moving so fast. What happened then is all of a sudden we started to understand another power uplift with generative AI and large language models. And so we've obviously had to understand that new technology. We've built a new second product that's using some of those techniques. But it doesn't matter which way you come at this, there's always few things that are always the same, minus the buzz and the blah, blah, or even agentic AI. You've got to get really clear on the problem you're solving and the use case, and you better well have really good data, and you really need to be very attentive to the human in the loop and the adoption process because so many of these things are failing, and it's not. This isn't, I don't think, a technology problem. I think this is really a people challenge that really needs to be understood and deep conversations about should we be doing what we're trying to do and is it worth doing? Not everything can be solved with AI. So I think I bring maybe a really solid, realistic, pragmatic perspective and just don't get so caught up in the drama, you know.
I like that point. Not everything can be solved with AI. I think, tell me what you think on this topic. I think like anybody starting a technology company in today's day and age thinks that they absolutely positively must have AI as part of their solution. Otherwise, it's not going to be accepted by investors or in the marketplace. How do you feel about that?
I think smart investors will ask the hard questions about is AI the right technical strategy to solve this use case? I mean, to me, AI is just one technique of many. So if you're building sensor technology, you're going to be dealing with hardware and sensors. And yes, there may be some software that needs some AI enablement. But to only think that AI is the only capability to go to market, I think those investors will make the wrong decisions. I think the wise investors will step back and say, okay, what's the best means to build this solution? And what are the different modalities? And be willing to explore, I think, all the different options. If you've got 80% of the solutions failing, well, you better manage risk a little bit differently. You better really think hard.
Agreed. So speaking about risk, you mentioned clawback clauses, and we have a lot of entrepreneurs and founders that are listeners to the show, and this is one topic I haven't personally covered yet. So I would love to introduce clawback clauses so that folks can understand what they need to look out for during a significant investment or an acquisition.
Well, essentially, a clawback clause is, it's a hurdle. It's if you're going to achieve XYZ revenue, then you will, maintain your equity position. But if you do not achieve your revenue position, there could be a clawback based on a percentage, and those numbers, can really hurt an entrepreneur. So, in other words, be very alert to the plan that you set forth with your investors and make sure that you're confident that you can deliver on them. If you have clawback clauses, try and remove them with good legal counsel. But, in my experience, if they're fair structures and you're confident you can deliver and make sure there's a buffer, they're not a bad thing. I think setting goals is a good thing. But I would rather an entrepreneur go into a win-win situation because those of us who've been entrepreneurs, sometimes things happen. Like COVID came out of nowhere, right? And wiped out many companies. And so, if you can avoid those clauses, I think it's in your best interest as an entrepreneur is what I would say.
That's good advice, or at least change them to the reverse, which would be an earnout. So this way, the acquirer or the investor is holding back money, and if and when you meet certain milestones, you get that money, which feels a lot better than receiving it and then having to give it back, whether it be hard cash or equity.
Yeah, yeah, very true. Earnouts aren't as common with venture capitalists, strategies because they really want you to grow, right? That's their motive around us, right?
Agreed. So, with your experience in the VC world and in investments and in advisory, what strategies have you seen founders put into place to maximize the results of their exits, whether it be to a strategic acquirer or to a private equity firm or a VC?
Well, I think that anything in terms of that, any exit pathway, you probably need to start thinking about exit 5 years earlier to a playbook, right? So this is a long-term game. And, even though we've now been in business for 10 years, I've not been focused on all the exit pathways. I'm starting to think about them, mainly because my husband's retired, but there's no burning platform to do that. Um, I think that, my experience has been that it takes time to nurture relationships. And I think you also have an obligation to your employees, the people that have been loyal, if you are going to take an exit pathway, to really ensure that the culture aligns with the values that you have. There will always be pathways, I think, in life for good companies for exit. The real question, is it the right one? Is it the right time? Are the terms right? Yada, yada. And so if you're not under duress, then take the time. And it's fun being an entrepreneur and it's fun seeing your children grow up. So, it's definitely a long-term play and it's a strategy that you have to work at. I think you got to write it down. You got to really think it's like sales coverage. You got a plan, you gotta think of the different stakeholders and, it takes time.
I agree 100%. I mean, anybody, just like anything else, anything that's, planned properly is going to result in a better outcome. And exits, do take an incredibly long time to do properly and to really maximize the results for all the stakeholders, including the employees, like you mentioned.
Yeah, for sure. I think the only build I'd quickly make on that point is that to creating alliances, where there's pull through allows you to test in a nice channel relationship that, with a larger player, that's got distribution capabilities. I mean, testing those strategies where, they've got a gap in their portfolio, there's logical synergy, they're incentivizing their salespeople to bring you into the market. I think those are very, very wise but you could have multiple channel strategies. So that means, multiple, playbooks, right? Playing. So I think that can be very wise. The issue always with channels is that they've got to be managed and you've got to have the resourcing capacity to be able to incentivize the sales professionals, work it, and you can't take on too many, and otherwise nothing really gets done, right?
Agreed. Two birds catches either, or chases two rabbits, catches either. So taking on too much will definitely hurt.
Yeah, absolutely, right.
So back to humans and employees in regards to AI. In your book, one of the principles you mentioned is to be intentional about the risk to humans with your solutions. So how do you decide which risks are acceptable and by whom, and where do you draw the line?
Well, I'm in a fortunate position because I also teach AI ethics and law. So, to me, what we've tried to do in the company is we've taken the perspective of how can we make our AI models very transparent, not black box. So, I think that transparency is one element where you, as a CEO or a board director or an investor, you have a choice to make decisions. If it's only black box and you don't have any auditability or explainability, then, and we all know when these models drift, we know in Gen AI they hallucinate. We know in Gen AI now that they purposely hold the information back on purpose. So there's a real need for there's going to be a new generation of software tools that are auditing enablement tools, right? There's lots of research underway and things are getting better and better. But I think having that premise on where do you stand in relationship to explainability and transparency sets, some one of the bars. I think the other one is accountability. I mean, you can't sue an algorithm. So, how do you ensure that your processes, your machine learning ops, the number of versions that you're running with the model, the versioning controls, verifying there's no data bias in the data set, having different, I call it data bias tool processes that can cross-reference things, because AI is very much a heavy, I think, R&D. That's the way I look at it. Multiple cycles, you're getting a prediction and outcome in the model. We know the models drift, and so they're highly iterative. It's not like traditional application development. It really, really isn't. And I think that's where people miss out on the building the practices to continue to operate, these models. I think the other piece is you have to be very alert to the privacy, in different jurisdictions and the different laws. And, right now we have, and I say a gong show, we really do because we have different laws coming in different states in the US as it relates to AI. We've got the EU Act that's out. Canada is still, determining what it wants to do. There's different privacy laws across Canada, depending on the different jurisdiction that you're in. So it's really hard for entrepreneurs to navigate, all of those regulatory environments and compliance. And so, unfortunately, many of them probably aren't aware of them and they're just continuing to sell. But as organizations with procurement put in, has your solution been verified and audited? Do you have any ISO certification or NIST framework certification, which is the US
Hmm.
security? So people are, I think, navigating. So in other words, your question is, it's a pretty loaded one. I think it's really at the point right now until we get better guardrails, you have to put a pretty big investment into your privacy, your regulatory controls within a software organization that's wanting to scale for AI. And I think smart VCs will look for that on your operating plan and also managing for legal risk, right? Which you're seeing all the time, right? Lots of court cases on copyright issues right now.
Hey everyone, just a quick break from the show to review the top 3 things that I talk to many founders about that are looking to maximize the valuation during an exit. 1, are your books in order? 2, is there enough growth left in the business for the acquirer? And number 3, what is your sizzle? What is that special sauce that's going to take many years for a competitor to recreate? If you have those 3, you're definitely going to be maximizing your valuation upon exit. Now back to the show.
Yeah, it's definitely super interesting. So speaking about data privacy, so with Sales Choice, how do you ensure a customer's data privacy? I'm assuming the model that your solution learns on is private to a specific customer. If that's correct, like when they were asking you all these questions about how do I know that my data is secure, what is the answer that you and your team provide?
Well, first, we have 2 products. The first is Sales Insights, and it's an app on the Salesforce App Exchange, and the data stays resident in Salesforce in its native CRM container, right? So we're bringing an overlay where we build a model in very private, secure lines, and the model then, predicts back the odds of whether that opportunity will be won or lost with the reasons why. So it's in a very secure environment. We're in the Amazon, environment through secure lines connected to Salesforce. The data resides and stays within native Salesforce, right? So it's not like we're taking out all of the data and we become the master repository, right? We create a model, a unique model through encrypted lines and then pushbacks, but the data stays in native Salesforce.
Okay, that's a great answer. That should give a customer confidence. What successes can you speak about? Obviously, keeping the name anonymous in terms of the increase in sales productivity that customers can expect after using your solution versus not.
Well, most of our cases are on our corporate website, but I think what we've learned is in usually 1 or 2, any company, their average deal size, whatever it is, it's only 1 or 2 deals. And let's say the average deal size they have is 50K or even 200,000. You've got your payback for us in less than a year. So that we've proven out, right? So the ROI is very, very demonstrative. The behavioral change is really the challenge of slowing salespeople down, look at this next analytic layer and looking at the rankings, because we do stratify things into the A's, the best possibilities, the B's or the C's. We find 2 modalities helps. It's like, okay, 90%, yes, they know it's an A or and so we do both. And it's just getting them to say, you know what? And which one should I bet on? And that psychological salespeople often feel that they're more right than wrong. But what we find is that as the organization matures, they find out the science is their best friend and they are winning more. So uplifts we're seeing on average can be incremental revenue between 15 and 20%. It's in year and 2, 3 with the real adoptions. I'd call it accelerators. But to me, the joy is seeing where in the RevOps team, a salesperson saying, I'm absolutely going to close this. I'm absolutely. And the science says 40% odds of success. And we're right. And so it's like The RevOps people now are no longer taking in some of our accounts what the salespeople are saying. They're only taking the AI true forecast, the pure uh, science. So it varies from culture to culture. It doesn't mean that humans and don't have, but you think about all the time we waste, in these views. I mean, if you could free up that time and the salespeople can go and talk to their customers, that's way better than management drilling, drilling, drilling. It's the forecast. Anyways, so the finance people always take a number and they reduce it by 20 to 30%. If the science is already really accurate, like in one account, we're at 90% accuracy in our forecast, right? It's really big. And so even the finance, they go, maybe I don't need to discount as much, right? You can trust it a bit more. But, finance people would always discount because they just like to do everything, right?
They're always sandbagging.
Yeah. So, those would be my thoughts there. But lots of stories, lots of use cases. There's videos and, yeah, with customers talking about the return on investment as well.
Excellent. Are there any industries that would benefit more from your solution versus others, or is this pretty much cross industry?
Mainly only B2B. We're not B2C at all. So this is B2B businesses. But, there's certain industries which we have proven out, like we've proven out in logistics and transportation now, professional services, telecommunications, healthcare, manufacturing. But those are the ones that, where we have, client installs. The consumer packaged goods, they are bulk, kind of treatment, right? Probably not the best fit for a solution like ours, where, because they would have returning customers. So we're very, very good when salespeople are carrying, 25 to 50 opportunities. I mean, they're chasing a lot of volume. Um, and, things are a little bit overloaded mentally, are probably are better fits for us.
Okay. So when you do your implementation projects, I remember back at my company, we got to the point where we're doing the majority of our implementations virtually, and we started reversing the trend and having our systems integrators and engineers, go on site to build more customer relationships. Are you still doing your implementations virtually, or do you have a combination of virtual and in-person visits as well?
I'd say it's a combination. I think it depends on where the customer is located. Obviously, in Toronto with customers, we definitely go out and see them physically, right? But for customers that are maybe in London, England, no, it's all done virtually, right? So it varies depending on the nature of the account and the nature of what needs to be done. But technically, everything can be done virtually. It's no question. It's the relationships that I do fly out obviously to meet the customers, especially the major accounts, right?
I love that because that's something I started doing a lot more, especially towards the tail end of my company's life. I just wanted to get a little old school and start building up relationships versus doing 100% of the project remotely.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. There's nothing like eyeballs, right?
Exactly. So you mentioned culture, sales culture. Like, what specifically do you do to maintain the corporate culture within your company?
Oh, I think we do a lot of cool things. Let me just show you. Sorry, I have to get my props.
That's fine.
'Cause our team is distributed, right? So we use a lot of little different fine. We have something called Hug Huddle. We every day we get on it's like an agile scrum. What's on point, any issues, concerns, and so we practice that every single day, and it is called Hug Huddle. We bring people together usually twice a year, but not any more than that because people are distributed. Um, and, we celebrate in special little ways. Like we've got kudo boards, things like that. Our product mood insights where we check in on how people are feeling. So our software is being used as well is another area. Relatively new because that product's very, very new. But those would be the main ways. And I think it's, our leadership team meetings are very open. I think people feel free just to say it the way it is. I mean, it's a very authentic culture and we have our core values and I think we live by them and we do our performance reviews on a regular basis and we give feedback all the time. What makes a great culture to me is psychological safety,
Hmm.
where people feel safe that they can just be who they are and bring their whole person to work. And we really value diversity a lot, like different ethnics, different cultures, different foods. We're storytellers, and I'm notorious for sharing silly jokes every day too. A laugh to me is magical. So
It sounds like we share a lot of the same values, and we you have a very similar culture that I had in my company. So I everything that you said resonated really well with me. So kudos for doing that and keeping that up. I'm sure you have below industry turnover as a result.
yeah, there's nobody that's left in terms of the core team, right? There's been some people that have left, but not the core. Like we're very really blessed. I've got the core leaders, the core team here still.
Yeah, that's awesome. Good for you. That's a total, sign that you're doing the right thing. So you mentioned something which is interesting. Can you dig a little bit deeper in it? The software lets you understand the mood of your employees.
Yeah,
How does that work?
the second product does it's called Mood Insights, and it does a daily check-in on how people are feeling and the reasons why they're feeling. And then there's some Gen AI that analyzes the text and parses it, into controllables and non-controllables. And then there's a beautiful analytics back end that can correlate it to all kinds of things, whether it's in different use cases. So it could be call volume, is the volume too high, and where is the sweet spot when people start to dip to be sadder or unhappy. We can look at net promoter scores and customer sat scores and employee sat and kind of look at the correlation, volume of work, hours work, loss of business. So we've built that product, and it's very new, but it allows you to keep track of how people are feeling very privately. You have to set the thresholds to. Can't really do it if you've got an organization of less than 6 employees, right? So it's kind of there. Yeah, so it's just gives people permission to feel and letting them know that we care how you start your day, and we care how you end your day every day. And I think people need to pause and chill a whole lot more, uh, and they'll feel a whole lot better because they're taking the time to reflect, right? So I'm a big believer in reflection, wellness, mindfulness. We weren't hardwired as humans. We weren't built to live with this constant stimulation. We just weren't. And I think people need to understand how our brains are hardwired, and that's why I think there's so much interest in neuroscience right now, right? So, yeah, so I'm a deep reader in brain science these days.
I love it. That solution sounds really, really interesting. Best of luck deploying it.
Yeah, yeah, and if you ever want a demo, I'm happy to show it to you. It's a really beautiful product. We worked really hard on it.
Okay, yeah, I would love to see it. I would love to recommend it to some customers. So speaking about products and growth, I know your business has been around for just over 10 years, approximately. Where are you in your corporate growth journey? Are you taking on outside investment? Are you looking to like hockey stick company growth? Are you just slowly but surely growing? Describe what phase of growth you're in right now and how you're addressing it.
Well, I think we're definitely out of the product validation phase
You've
for the
proven product market fit for sure.
first product. The second product, we're still working on that, but I think we're on the right track based on the feedback we're getting in the proposal cycles. Are we going out to market to raise around? Thinking about it, but I also know that's a full-time job running around, and there's enough cash flow and enough momentum that we can just keep growing, right? So is that a slow-mo mode? Yeah, let's put it this way, it's comfortable for the team and comfortable for me. For an investor, they would want a faster trajectory, but that's why you're bringing in that capital. You're bringing in that capital to have more sales and marketing resourcing, not as many engineers, of course, right?
Right.
And, but there's trade-offs, right? There's one school of thought is just be steady Eddie, keep demonstrating, because when you have your excerpt, you're not gonna be diluted same degree, right? So I think I'm on that pathway, and if we do take a round in, it's not going to be a significant round where we would lose the control of the company, because it's not we don't need to do that.
It seems like the right approach to have at this time.
I hope so. We'll find out.
Only time will tell, right?
That's very true. That's very, very true, right?
Cindy, you've been a wealth of knowledge on everything from corporate stuff to AI to human behavior. Where can people reach you if they have any more questions? And where can they find more information about your book and your company? Or books, I should say.
Well, first, I do have a new book coming out next year called The AI Precipice, an executive guide to balancing innovation and safety. And I've written that with Kathy Colby, the global partner of AI at Ernst & Young. So that'll be out in the new year with Routledge. The other one, The AI Dilemma, is on Amazon. You can easily reach me at cindy@saleschoice.com. I'm on LinkedIn, easy to find, Dr. Cindy Gordon. Our company's at www.saleschoice.com. And everything we do is very visible. We write an AI newsletter every week, trying to, keep sharing stories of success, but also advising people on, I think, practical perspectives that can hopefully help them. And we have a treasure trove of podcasts as well, and sessions and webinars, all usually related to digital transformation and things, and lots of white papers there as well. We just finished doing a series with Ernst & Young on a variety of topics. So we try and find, publish good content. We share that knowledge. We're there just to help people, approach this the right way and not be naive as well. And we really reinforce responsible AI. I think it's so important that we think harder and be more critical with the solutions that we're building.
Agreed. Well, thank you for sharing all that. Sounds like there's a ton of information for people to get into. So hopefully the listeners and watchers hit everything that you just mentioned and take advantage of all this great information. Thank you again for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Really nice to have a chance to meet you and partner with you today. Thank you.
You as well. You as well. Thank you very much for listening to another episode of Built to Finish. If you've enjoyed this episode, please do like and subscribe. It does help the show a lot and helps me get great guests like Cindy on the show. Thank you very much for tuning in today.
That's a wrap for this episode of Built to Finish. Thank you for tuning in. For show notes and more details, head over to podcast.stevenpivnik.com. Special thank you to our sponsor, Acresis, offering tailored, high-impact advisory services that help founders get to their finish line with a strategic acquisition or majority investor recapitalization. Catch you next week.